Introduction again. Today I want to speak about UX management and the importance of UX management. I don't say anything about me. If you want to check more, check LinkedIn or whatever, follow me, or I don't know, reach out to me per mail. I only have 40 minutes or 35 minutes. The topic of UX management is really, really important. It's really, really a huge topic because I also teach that at the university, and it takes me at least 3 full days for the main important areas. They have 35 minutes, 40 minutes. So let's go into the topic and start. I hope you see the screen. Yes, I hope so. Let's
Can see
start
the
with
screen.
the talk, the importance of UX management. The first question is always, and I start with definitions, and it's really important that we all talk from the same baseline. It's also about UX and usability. When we don't talk about the same, how should others understand us? So, what is UX management? First, we have to talk about what is UX. And UX is much bigger than we all think about. It's about everything. It's about daily life. It's about screens, of course, and we know that most of us design software, design apps, design screens. But honestly, if you're only working on screens, you are a usability engineer and no UX engineer or UX designer. When you work on the whole process, on service, on journey maps, on culture, then you are in the right field of UX and UX management at the end, or UX designing things. So what we are doing, and the most important thing of UX is building the right thing and not making things look pretty or making it efficient. We can make the best or a product really efficient and effective, but at the end, if you don't do the right thing, no one will use it. So UX is about building the right thing. And we see, and I'm convinced you know all these studies, that people or companies who concentrate on UX, on design management, are much more successful than others. What is management? And this is the more important because we know what UX is. What is management? What is management about? And it's an organizational thing. We have to achieve organizational goals. We have to work with organizational resources. It's nothing about design, about creating something. So we have 4 basic management functions that make up that management thing. And if you combine it with UX, then we have UX management. So starting with planning, we have to plan the whole UX process. We have to plan a whole project. We have to plan the whole company maturity. We have to plan. It's the first thing. We have to organize everything. Which design process will we use? Who is doing what? When are we doing what? Which methods are we using? How much people do we? And so on. Everything about organizing the whole project. Not more. It's more the whole strategy. We have to create the vision. So then the influencing. We have to do the stakeholder mapping. We have to influence people. We have to convince people. We have to work with our own people. We have to motivate them. We have to give them the right direction. Everything about influencing. So, and at the end, we have to control. We have to measure UX. It's also the most important part of the whole management functionality. So what is that about in combination with UX? So what is UX management? At the end, you don't have to read it. It's about enabling innovation to enhance our quality of life. And this is the most important thing. We don't create screens. We don't manage something. We don't. We want to enable innovation for our daily life. And this is what we have to think about. It's not about screens because sometimes some analog, a sheet of paper is much more influential than a screen or an app. So we have to think about our daily life. And I always say a good UX designer is the best innovation manager. So we are UX manager and innovation manager. We are make the better world. And this is what we have to think about every day. Does this functionality makes our world a better quality, a better life? Um, But the big problem, and this is a huge problem, which I try to work against right now, also with the accreditation, also with we create a new MBA studies right now. UX, UI designers, and UX, UI designers is really a wrong word I write down because 90% call them UX, UI designer. There is no UX, UI. But at the end, we are creators. We love UX, we love UI, we love the whole profession because we are creators. We want to create something. To be a manager means no creation. We don't create anything. This is why most of us don't like to be a UX manager. And when we are a UX manager, we hate it because we have to manage, we have to work in Excel sheets, we have to work with numbers, we have to talk to people about things we don't like to talk, maybe. But this bad thing, we don't work on the operational side to create something. So we are influencers at the end. And most of us don't like to be this influencer. We don't like to be this UX manager because then we are sitting in meetings 80% of the time. And the problem again, if you don't want to create or if you are no creator, I see there's a spelling to responsibles. We don't communicate to responsibles. So we are not allowed to do those things we like to do because we know it sometimes better than managers how to create a great service, product, or systems. So there's a big gap really in between that we need those UX managers who are able to speak to the C level, to the responsibles, and to the creators. So really, there's this big gap between creators and responsibles, and this is what we really need. At the end, if a product manager, a product owner, has the mindset of UX, that's also fair. That's also great. But also then you have to manage also us as a creator. And this is something which is what I see is not possible because you have to do the product definition, the backlog, the whatever, everything. And then you also have to care about creators and engineers which speak a different language. And that's a big problem. So this is why we need this UX management thing. And if you want to become one, I will go through these 4 areas really fast, and I will show you my insights, which are really, really important in my point of view. So UX planning. What's the first step in UX planning? At the end, I created my own UX strategy plan. At the end, at the beginning, before you get a project, before someone says, hey, let's start creating a new app, we have to ask a lot of questions. And asking questions is the blood of a UX designer, a UX manager. We have to think about everything. As more we know, as better we can create something. So we have to think about the importance of UX in a project, about the vision, the strategy. If we don't need the vision, we are maybe going in a really wrong direction. And after 1 or 2 years, some responsible, some C-level says, but I wanted to go in another direction. So ask always about the vision. And asking question don't means you don't know something. It means you're really professional. You want to know something because you can make a better job. Ask about the objectives, project objectives. If you know the objectives, you know where to go, and you always can bring those numbers which people need. Think about the stakeholders. I can tell you so many projects where I tried to find out the stakeholders. My responsibles, my product managers don't told me those. And at the end, really at the end of the project, they said, we have to stop this project because everything is wrong, because we didn't integrate the right stakeholders. We have to think about the personas, target groups, main persona, super persona, personas, non-personas. We have to think about the KPIs. Maybe also if you are an agency or also an in-house, exit points. If you can't work together with someone, think about what are my exit points. Are there possibilities to exit a project? Rituals. If you are in a project and the opposite don't understand you act in the right way, you have to convince them. And rituals is a great way to convince them to bring UX design into their mind. So you say, okay, let's meet once a week in the morning for breakfast. Meet once a week in the evening for a beer, whatever. You have to or you create a newsletter, a weekly newsletter only for the project team, what you have done, and so on and so on. So you can think, but this depends on the culture. Of course, you have to define our methods at the beginning and the cost. So everything about the planning. So I will show you also, this is what I did in the real life. And there is, you see, a little product question, Gregor, question mark, what is the project? When is the project a success? Gregor, question mark. So it was really funny because at this kickoff meeting, the main project leader didn't join the meeting. And so we didn't know anything. So we had to ask or wait 2 more weeks, whatever, to say, hey, we have to know that before we can start. If you don't have such questions, if you don't know that, then after 2 weeks, Gregor will come and say, hey, what have you done the last 2 weeks? And you say, I don't know because I don't know. And he didn't know. So also at the beginning, this communication troubles starts really fast if you don't really match and if you work together. So these are why these questions and this planning is so important as a UX manager. And if you don't know anything, if you come into a new company and you will be hired as UX manager, for example, or a design manager, and they don't know what you have to do, then you maybe can start with a value proposition canvas to find out where are the biggest problems in the company, where is the biggest achievement which you can reach in a really fast way that you can show success really soon. So the value proposition canvas is a great tool for starting for internal services, but also for external. This is about the planning. I will come back to the planning a little bit later because there's a much more important thing is because if you're starting with a project, you're a huge way too late. The best case, we don't start with an idea, we start with research, creating the first project. When we start as UX designers, UX manager in a project, we're normally too late. But this is what I show you right now in the UX organization. So if you don't know that, nice, not nice process, it's the human-centered design process. It's an ISO standard. It's valuable or known normally globally. And if you say, okay, I work with the human-centered design process, ISO 344, 210, then you don't do anything wrong. And if you are a good UX designer, of course, everyone wants to do research. And normally, a lot of people told me they are not allowed to do research. And if you say, hey, I want to work through ISO, and they tell you, yeah, but you're not allowed to do research for my product, then you say, okay, then I'm not working in the global standard, then I only can do it in my best way, but I can't promise that my best way is always the best for the product, and it's at the end only a hypothesis. And the hypothesis says, okay, if it's a hypothesis, it's a 50-50 chance if it works or not. So, and my question is, how many C-levels decide on a 50-50 chance to start on a project, if it works or not? I would say 99% don't decide on a 50-50 chance. So you can argue that you say, okay, then we have to do research, specific, understand and specify the context of use. If you don't do it, you're only working on hypotheses. As long as I argue in that way, I'm always allowed to do research in every project, and that's really important to understand. There's also in the organization, how do we work together? And I know in most companies there is a Scrum process, a waterfall process. We have to work with the IT team. The IT team is much bigger, but at the end, this is what's also important for a UX manager to define. Okay, how do we work together? And at the end, there's no ideal solution. The best solution depends on the customer, the culture, the resources. If it's external, internal, how many people are working on the project type, on the budget, time frame. You know everything of that. And I show you some examples. So what typically happens? Only development, and these rectangles are design sprints, 2 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever. And then also talked with the company. Said the guy said, we changed everything to Scrum, and our design sprint takes 5 years because we are hardware development and it can't be faster. So always Scrum is not always the best way, but at the end, only development. And at the end, we do some UX to make it more pretty, make it better, and so on. So it's not that good at the end. I don't see any good way to do that. To do UX at the beginning, and then we do the whole development. If I ask, is this good or bad? Please write in the chat. Do you think it's good or bad? Only doing UX at the beginning, and then we do the whole development. What do you think? Bad, not great either. This is always not. It's okayish at the end. I will say it's okayish. It's typically for small projects without risk, project with a clear goal. I can tell you that we changed the whole development process of Red Bull, the energy drink, the internal projects. And we did everything at the beginning. We did the research, we checked everything with business, we defined the whole project, and then put everything into the development. And they had the development one-to-one, what we designed and we created. For internal projects, for projects with a clear goal, without any huge risks. So it works. We also did it with hardware development for Philips. And after that, within the first 18 months, Philips achieved worldwide in a market share increase of more than 10%. So it's also in the hardware development where you have to define everything in the beginning, and after that, development starts. So there are cases, and we created a whole system for ships, for Red Bull, and whatever. So all these projects, we only do UX at the beginning, and the development has to do what we said. What happens? They saved or decreased the development cost around 20 to 30%. Because at the end, what we are doing is, as a UX people, we decrease the change requests at the end, because there are no change requests anymore, because they really do what we deliver. So it's at the end, it's an awesome way to do UX, to do everything at the beginning. When you don't have this, when you have these clear goals, and when you really have to know what you're doing. Of course, typically in Scrum, we really work hand in hand with the UX with the development. This is also great if you have no UX department, external, or if you have a bigger project where we don't know where to go, or when we have a CEO, a lead engineer who want to bring in his own ideas always and change everything on anything. And we can't change that, because at the end we are human, and some humans have more responsibilities than other humans. So at the end, we also created such tools, apps, whatever, where we started. We really worked hand in hand. We were really flexible and changed. And changing software doesn't mean, and I saw it in a lot of companies who work in Scrum, where change is normally in their blood. If a Scrum process is over, they normally don't want to change anything what they developed. But if you do it right, you have to evaluate. There are new requirements. You have to change always. This is why we have to work together, really hand in hand with the development and the product leaders. Or other way, really typically when you have a really huge project, and I call it MVC, minimal viable concept. We need to create an experience concept, a technical concept, and a business concept. Out of these concepts, we create the first MVP, minimal viable product. And when we know this minimal viable product, our term, and please, if you talk in minimal viable products, define the definition of a minimal viable product in your group. Normally, everyone talks about something different in minimal viable products. At the end, the minimal viable product is not only technical things, it's about making less really great. And when you know people are buying it, then you work on the whole project and go through the next 5-10 years optimizing the whole project. That's also really typical. But at the end, we need at the beginning this vision. We need to know this. We have to prove that the experience is working, that the business is working, and the technical concept is working. And the head projects where one of these three is going wrong, and I had a 2 or 3 years project where the company said UX is the most important. We worked really deep on the whole UX project, and after 2 years, the external development realized they can't deliver the number of data sets which they have to send from the hardware to the software in 1 second. They prepared everything for 100,000 data sets per second, but at the end they needed around 1 million. And after 2 years, they had to stop the project because of technical issues, and they started really from the beginning. And it's also a huge problem. We also created this for a local company, this NASA product of the year, which NASA, the American NASA is working with. And it works if you really work together, if you create these MVCs at the beginning, when you prepare everything for development, they can really do great stuff and work on. Now they're working, you see, now for more than 10 or 12 years, they're working on this project. They're really successful with it. And there is another way we have to think about the specifications already defined by an expert group. Typically, when you work with the government, typically if you work with official institutions, they give you these are the requirements for the product, and now make it a great product out of it. This is what I will say is normally we have to operate this product, but we're not allowed to. So something like on the left side, this happens at the end because requirements from an expert group are not requirements from the user. This is always a huge thing, and I did a project last year where we all get these requirements from the government, and then we talk to the user, and the user said, everything what you're doing right now is bullshit, but we had to do it. And this is where we have sometimes a really huge problem, because we are responsible for the product. We know everything what we have to do is bad, but we're not allowed to change. So this is why I told at the beginning, we as UX manager have sometimes start not at the project itself. We have to start much earlier. And this is also important why we have to do this stakeholder mapping and stakeholder thing. So a lot of things, a lot of tips. UX is not about the user. UX is about technology, about business, and the human. We, in the mind of everyone, we are mostly connected with the user or the human. But at the end, as UX manager, we are responsible for talking to business, technically, and to the human to make the best solution. So we are really in the middle. We are a mediator. We are the speaker for a whole product. At the end, this is why I say a good product manager is a good UX manager. Or mostly a good UX manager is the better product manager at the end. Because at the end, the technical guy can't speak to the human because they don't have the skills. They don't speak to business. So at the end, this skills, talking to human, talking to people is a really, really important skill. This is our skill. And this is the most important skill. Not working with Figma, not doing some, knowing how to do something in Adobe, whatever. Talking to people, finding out the right skills. This is what is our power at the end. And also AI can't do that for us. I tried a project this year in February, March. I had a bigger research project, and I thought, okay, maybe I don't want to be this bad guy who said AI is always bad. And I did all these requirements and needs evaluation of the interviews with AI. And of course, they did it really well for 80% in the overall needs. But if you're a human, you can read between the lines. You understand people. You can see if they are worried, if they're feeling. You can read much more out of the interview than an AI. An AI can only read text. And at the end, after this 80%, I also found 20, 30 more insights, these more important insights, and at the end needs for this product that AI couldn't find. So it's really important to go through. Maybe you can do it for the management. It's okay-ish, I would say, but at the end, really for if you want to create an extraordinary experience for products, for a service, whatever, do the research, do it on your own as a human, because we are speaking to human. It's 80% communication and 20% common sense. So our skill is communication. The greatest added value of UX lies in the business analysis before we go into the product. So defining what's the right thing to create. So in the best case, we are not working the product. We before create these MVPs. We are business analysts at the end. Other companies have other names for it, so depends on the company. I also saw people with who said it's the business analyst, it's sales who do the requirements. So depending on the company, I have to go forward much faster. Create these MVPs or MVCs, and also covering the main MVPs, covering the main use cases from technical, customer, and end user perspective. That's really important. Or in the startup area, smallest possible feature set, where customer would pay anything. So they have to love it, they have to pay for it, and technical requirements have to work. Something like that on the right side. This is what we have to create, not on the left side. I think you know this. Testing, only test risky hypotheses. We don't have to test a left side menu, a horizontal menu, because we know it's working. This is often people say, hey, we have to test everything. No, we don't have to test everything. We only have to test something where we don't know if it works or not. Visualization is the most important thing, that people understand the same thing for common sense. Visualize as lot as possible. This is why customer journeys are great, why mappings are so great. Everyone loves mappings and journeys because we visualize and we talk about the same thing. And this is also what you have to do as a UX manager, to create this common sense. And at the end, from the problem setting to the implementation, we can prove everything. I will always say, I can prove every line which I'm doing. And if I can prove it, then it's art. From the vision strategy to the KPIs, to the research, to the transcript, to the needs, maps, prioritization, requirements, I can prove everything. And at the end, if a new colleague is coming into your company and asking, why have you done this feature? Why have you done this line? Why it's on the left side or the right side? Then you have to say, because this, and this, because we did this research, blah, 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 and so on, so on. We can prove everything. This is really important. In your job, you have to prove everything what we are doing. It's no magic at the end. Influencing, it's about lead or manage. Leading is about changing, disrupting, inspiring. This is what we are doing. And managing is about controlling, measuring, keeping organized. So UX manager, UX leadership, that's a little bit the difference. Of course, there are single UX teams outside there. You have always the question, do you have the power to do everything what I'm talking about? Do you have some key skills, what you really want to do? At the end, you have to define your own magic skills, what you really want to do and what you are able to do. And if someone from external coming, hey, you have to do this, you have to do this and do this, you have to say, stop, no, this is not what I have to do. Then you can say, okay, we have to hire someone else for that, or we need an external support, or whatever. So at the end, that's the biggest challenge when you're a single UX, UI manager, everything. They think everyone else thinks you can do everything, and they ask you. And then this is why this designer burnout happens, which is really trendy right now. You also, as a UX manager, have to think about your team, which skills you need, which projects you have, which future projects are coming, and so on. So building up the right team, the right person, with the right philosophy, at the end of the whole hiring process. Also increasing your team. Do you need specialists? Do you need special forces? Do you need interaction designers, content strategists, whatever? Depends on, at the end, project depth, maturity level, and so on. You have to manage that. And at the end, the last few slides, or most of the biggest thing, is the UX controlling. And when you search for UX controlling or UX measurement, we always see the same KPIs. Time to the retention rate, the time to task, and so on and so on. But at the end, UX is the sum of a series of interactions. That's more than only one KPI. And the only question is, or the biggest question is always, again, are we measuring the right thing? And the time to task is not an experience. We're talking about user experience. So the question is, how do you measure, for example, a bike? Normally, okay, how fast you can ride with a bike, how big are the tires, if you have how the weight of the bike, and this is how engineers measure a bike. But we have always asked, what's the experience with a bike? Do you want to do downhill? Do you want to drive in the city? Do you only want to drive 5 minutes from A to B? What are your needs? What is the experience with your product? And this is the only right question. What is the experience for people with my product, service, or system? And we have to measure the experience. And the experience is the bigger metric. And this metric has a lot of different KPIs, of course. And this is what you can also go afterwards through it. I have 400 signups. So great. No, it's not great. It's really bad because we don't have any comparison of it. So at the end, you need to start measuring. Only to measure once is really bad. You have to start and measure a lot of times. So I also metric is about the percentage of users who share a task 3 times plus per week. So we have to measure and we have to compare KPIs with something. So matrix or KPIs, it's really important that you could articulate this as a team. You have to find this moment of truth, this really experience where human says this product, this system, makes it valuable for me. This trigger, and I think you have to think about every journey. The sum of series is you always have a trigger, and when you have a trigger, then you do something. And when you do something, you get a trigger again. So it's a duet. It's every time a duet of trigger and tasks. And when you lead someone from A to B, journey, e-commerce, whatever, you always have something, and you have a call to action. And this should be harmonized. Everything is riding in the right direction. If you don't do that, every call to action going a different way, and at the end you're not buying, you do something else because I don't know. So you have to build specific metrics to monitor. You have to prioritize them. You have to find the right trigger, matrix, and KPIs. And I know it's really fast right now. This is all about UX management. You can study UX management, the whole thing, but this is a really, really fast overview about what the UX manager has to do. And if you do all the things, the planning, the organizing, the influencing, and the measurement, you don't have any second for starting a Figma and Adobe, doing research, thinking about the colors, whatever. Then you are 100% a manager. And then you're not creating, you are planning, organizing, influencing, and controlling what other UX designers, UX researchers, UX writers are doing. And this is also a really important part. And you have to think of your own needs. Are you a creator or are you a manager? I thought I'm a manager, and I had my own agency. I had my own agency for 15 years, and I had also around 5 to 10 employees until I realized, no, is it really what I want to do? And I knew it, but I really want to realize it. And now I realize it, and I don't. And now I'm working alone. I'm my own UX designer, manager, whatever, because I realized I'm a creator. I love doing things. I love to create things. Um, and this is what you have to think about. Are you someone for managing or are you someone for creating? And then define your own job at the end. I hope this insights, this short introduction into UX management was helpful. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask right now. Um, yeah, any questions? 45 minutes. 5 minutes introduction, 40 minutes talk. Um, at the end, I know it was really, really fast. If you have any questions, we shared the LinkedIn. You can always ask me. You can ask for a meeting online, whatever. It don't cost anything. Um, please feel free to to catch up to me.
I just thank you so much for all of that. I think there was lots of parallels and points of where I personally could feel I could relate to, and I'm sure there's people in the audience that feel the same. There are some questions, um, so let me maybe jump into. So we've got a few questions from Morne, and I see we've got another one from Sune and one or two others. So okay, Morne says, love the fact that you say you do not have to test everything, just test the risky scenarios. Any
Yeah.
advice on working across different teams, some with different KPIs and executives? How do you align the good UX management processes with these different teams and KPIs?
That's that's a really good question. At the end, I what I see, if you don't have a responsible C-level executive who understands the whole UX management design, however you will call it, um, if those groups are working on their own, it's really, really hard to manage that. Then you need one responsible above who says we have to streamline all these KPIs. A really easy or an example. A friend of mine is responsible for the whole design system of um, industrial software, and he had the the job from the CEO to now roll out his design systems to all products. Um, the problem was that he wanted to do that, and he went to all these other businesses, all other areas, and their responsibility said, why should I include a design system when we have one, a new one, which cost me that much, which is a huge effort? Why should I do that? And I didn't do that. Also, the CEO said, but when you have a task, but if you don't do that, no, how do you say, um, if there don't happen anything, if you don't do it, no one will do it. So there have to be some at the end things which happen if you don't do it. So there have to be a leader management. Say, okay, we have to do it, and if you don't do it, then this happens. Otherwise, we are human. Everyone has his own numbers. Everyone has his own budget, and it's really, really hard to convince someone for something where they don't see any value. That's the problem.
That
It's yeah.
thank Yeah, I definitely agree. Um, and I think Monet, hopefully that answers the question as well. The next question for Johannes is from Sunay, and Sunay also makes a comment. This was such an informative talk and insightful and insight to help with career decisions, and that one does not have to be a manager if you have been in the UX position for a long time. Sunay's question is, and I think there's two questions that are similar, so I'll ask both together. So, where can one find the UX or experience design ISO standards and material? And then the question that is similar to that is, as a UX experience designer, what are the most important?
Because then you always can say, hey, we really want to work with the international standards. And if we don't do research, as I said, we're doing something wrong. Then we are not responsible for the outcome at the end. Or we have to do the testing, because if we don't test, we don't work with the ISO standards. If it's 210, it's ISO 9241-210, and the other for interaction standards is 110. But there are also standards for management, ISO human-centered organization standards. There are standards for safety critical systems. There are standards for medical systems in Europe, ISO standards, international standards. So there are a lot of standards. I know I also hated standards because I have to do something what someone else said. But at the end, as longer as I'm in this area, in this profession, it's more value I see in all the standards. Why? Because how should someone else, business, technology, understand us when we in the community, in the UX community, always talk about different things with the same wordings? This is why standards are so important. Only when we talk about the same, then others will see us as a profession, because they say it doesn't matter if I ask my UX manager, an external manager, another profession, to talk about the same thing. Then they will see us as a profession. And this is why standards are so important. Standards are everywhere, in medical, in architecture, in, I don't know. The problem is that we, as creators, as designers, always think, no, I'm so creative, I don't need standards. That's the worst we can do. Really the worst. This makes our profession really bad. If you say that. We have standards and we have to go through them. And if you say, hey, we have standards, if every one of us say that, then this is possible that we will be a real profession in the future. Right now, we are not a profession. This is the real truth. We want to be a profession, but we are not a profession.
Thank you, Hannes. We have another question. Let me just mark it as done. Okay, let me first ask this one. Another one from Monet. Any advice on resource motivation? Example, building a team, capabilities, skill set, etc.
There's at the end, it's the only right question. It depends. It depends on the company, on the culture, on the people itself. But when we talk about motivation, there are a lot of different ways to motivate people. At the end, the most important motivation is personalization. If people, and this is what I told you before, if people can do what they really want to do, they love their job and they will do the greatest job ever. If you have to do things you don't want to do, then you're running into a burnout. So this is what we have to define on our own first, and this is what it's one of the first things I do in the UX management course at university. Define your own vision as a designer. Define your own vision as a creator. What do you really want to do, and what's the value for everyone else? What's your personal driver? And if the problem is that most of us don't know that. When we know that, it's much easier to know where I want to be in 10 years, where I want to be in 20 years, what I want to do. It's really easy to say no or yes to someone. At the end, it's really hard. I know it's really hard. Everyone wants to find a job, and they take every job to get a job. And sometimes we need the money and whatever. So we do a lot of things we don't really want to do. But what we see that, and there are a lot of studies that at the end, really often 20% of employees of a company run the whole company, and 80% of the people do everything else. And if we can achieve that these people are doing the right thing, creating the right thing, um, you know what happens. Hey, different world. And all this, and another hint, I'm writing to that. I talked to you. I'm writing a book together with Joel and Cicero about creating the magic, extraordinary moments in business or in private life. It will published in October. Um, there are a lot of psychology needs which we have to create these moments, which you can use to motivate people to do other things, to start a transformation for people, for companies. Um, if you read this book, then you only have to follow me. I will publish it really soon. And yeah, there are a lot of possibilities. It will be our own talk for 3 days where we can go into. Sorry, it's a too huge topic.
That is all good, Hannes. We've got one last question. Um, and the question is, it's interesting that you mention common sense throughout your talk. Do you feel that this has become somewhat of a barrier in certain respects?
Of course, a huge barrier. Um, because at the end, if you don't have, at the end, if only two people don't have the common sense, if you think about you and your wife, or you and your husband, you and your friend, you will go on a holiday or on a trip, and you say, okay, I want to do that. The other said, I want to do the same thing. But you have different pictures in your mind, and you both start searching online for the greatest spot, and then you come back, and it's really really different. And then you realize, okay, we talked about the same, but really have a different meaning of the end life. And 2 months later, there's you're not a friend anymore. You're divorced and whatever. So that happens everywhere, in every situation, private life and business life. But it's the good thing is that in business we are allowed to talk about everything, but also in real life. But in business, you don't hesitate to say, hey, let's talk about our definition. What do you mean with MVP? What do you mean with user experience? What do you mean with this requirement? Visualize, and visualization is the most important thing to create the common sense, or define innovation for your company. What is innovation for your company, and so on and so on. So common sense is the most important thing, that all go in the right direction, in the same direction.
Thank you, Hannes. And
You're welcome.
we before we conclude, I mean that's the last of the questions. I just want to say again, a huge thank you to you, Hannes, for making the time to be here, for sharing your insights and knowledge. I know that there's way more knowledge bombs that you have to share, but also just to re-mention that the LinkedIn post that you post on the regular, weekly, almost daily. So I definitely encourage everyone to connect with you via LinkedIn. Even take you up on the offer to have that virtual chat. And I just want to do something. Since you're starting something, I thought I'd also just do this.
Oh,
You
awesome.
know. so so yeah, thank you. Thank you for I guess your presence at this event and also at World Congress. I know you're an absolutely amazing individual. So thank you, and we'll look forward to having you in person next time.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for invitation.